Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to another discussion/list video. So this is a change to the regular programming. The last few weeks we've been talking about WandaVision, and it's Friday night, it's 8 o'clock, and we have no more WandaVision, and we're all really sad about it. But next week we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we had a think on the channel, and we wanted to fill the void this week. We wanted to add like another Marvel kind of show, Marvel content discussion, and that's exactly what we'll be doing today. So we have a picture right here. So we're going to be discussing the 15 Marvel shows we need on Disney Plus, not want, need. This is need. So yeah, I mean, Disney are just like knocking it out of the park at the moment with WandaVision. We're getting Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're getting Loki. And I think they revealed like a whole slate of other ones that are going to be coming in a few years' time as well. So this is going to be an interesting list today. This is going to be a fun one because these could be pre-existing characters we've already had in the MCU, or these could be just brand new characters we've never seen before. So I don't know what we've all picked. So this is going to be a surprise as much as it is for everyone else. So yeah, before we get into the main list, just over to George with socials.
Absolutely, guys. As always, especially these Marvel videos, I want to thank everyone that's been joining us on the Infinity Saga Retrospective. A lot of new people commenting. We really appreciate that. So one more from you guys. We're actually doing this live for a change. We've got the purple space background, as we keep calling it. Comment below the Marvel shows. Yes, Marvel shows you want to see, not films. And make sure no one's already picked them, because I was like, I've got a great idea for a series. Like, no, that one's already in development. I was like, oh, okay. And I think Chris had the same as me, actually. We'll speak about them at the end. So it's one of them where there's a lot in production. So we've really had to dig deep for this. There's a lot of interesting scenarios. I'm excited to go through it, but comment below if you like this video, if you've liked this series, the Marvels, have hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot more Marvel content on the way, because starting next Friday, we're going to bring up straight away, this is the Disney Plus gap. Of course, we have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming very soon. We're working on some stuff. I'm going to give you a little thumbnail as a tease. That is the episode 1 thumbnail for next Friday. So this time next week, there'll be a spoiler discussion. It'll be me and Chris as normal, going through Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't know if it's going to be as insane or theorized as WandaVision. We're not going to do WandaVision spoilers. I don't think. If we do, we'll just say it before we do. I assume if you're watching this, you've watched WandaVision though, so get that in your system. But if you want to find out more of our videos, other stuff, we've got a lot of stuff coming your way. Of course, hit us up on our social medias, which is Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy, and we have a link to TeePublic in our description below. But now, of course, do comment along with us tonight. We'll bring up your comments as well. Any suggestions, any picks, we'll bring them up on the screen.
Absolutely. And today, as you can see, sorry, I probably should have done the intro at the beginning. We are joined with Dave from The Life of Brien. He's been on the channel loads before, and it's really good to have you back on to talk some Marvel with us, because I know you've been watching WandaVision as well, and I know that you very much enjoyed that. So it's always great to have you on the channel. And yeah, we don't have a plan for that. Are we just going straight into this thing? I guess we are, yes. So we've all got 5 picks each, and it's actually worked out kind of okay, because just glancing at what everyone's picked, it doesn't look like we've had any crossovers this time. So this has worked awesomely. I thought we'd have like one major pick that all of us... Anyway, so we're kicking off with my number 5 pick. I have got these in order of preference, by the way. So my number 1 is the one that I absolutely am out of my mind for. So starting off at the bottom of the list right now, it's my 5th pick. I would like a Sif, a Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 TV show. Now, most of the characters are dead out of this lineup, I'm not going to lie. So it'd be very, very difficult to do a Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 TV show set in the current present day of the MCU. So, of course, this would be a flashback. And I was trying to think about... I've tried to get like a variation out of all my picks, and the majority of the picks that I've gone for are ones that I would like to be sort of elaborated on more, especially with like Lady Sif, and just a show set on Asgard would be incredible. Looking at the current sort of TV landscape, you had the huge success of Game of Thrones before it very quickly went down the toilet in the last few seasons. And you've got Amazon taking on a Middle-earth TV series, which is coming out either later this year or next year, I believe. So fantasy is big. And you've also got Nordic things like Vikings, for example, which I think has wrapped now at this point. There's a gap in the market for a Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 TV show. In the first Thor film, and it's been a while since I've seen Thor the Dark World, because thankfully I had my get out of jail free card for that review that we did on the Dark World. But we get reference to loads of these adventures that Lady Sif, and I'm going to try not to keep saying the full title of all the characters, that all these characters went on with Thor. Now, I'm aware that probably with a show like this, you wouldn't have Chris Hemsworth around to be
You might get
Thor.
Chris Hemsworth.
No, we get a clone. We'll get a lookalike in and just call him a different name. But I don't think you could have him sort of like being a main component of this cast. So it would have to focus on these characters. But I did a little bit of reading on these characters and actually how two of the members of the Warriors 3 were handled, in that they were just killed very offhandedly and with no emotional death. Two of the three actually died off page in the comics. I don't know if that's the main run of comics, because comics are constantly getting rebooted and updated. But I love Jamie Alexander, and I think she is coming back, if I'm right, for Thor Love and Thunder. So it'll be nice to get some kind of closure to her character, because where's she been this whole time? It's sort of like one of the big unanswered questions from there. But this is more just sort of like, I would like this to be elaborated on. We get to see more of Asgard. We can see some of these adventures. We can get to know these characters more, so that when they do die very anticlimactically, maybe you'll have more information. You'll have seen more, you'll have spent more time with them, more of their dynamic, which would not only strengthen, you know, where they eventually end up, but like the original Thor film and everything. And because I was thinking about WandaVision and how we got flashbacks for her character, and how I love her character a whole lot more now than I did before watching WandaVision. So maybe this would be the same effect with these characters. I don't know. It's fifth on my list, so it's not one that I'm absolutely clamoring for, but I would love like an Asgard TV show, wherever it's set, with whichever character it's following. But those were sort of like the main characters that I could think of where one could be set.
Yeah, I think with those guys, what makes it kind of not funny is that when they go in Ragnarok, the three that do, so I think Lady Sif, I've got a feeling that Taika just didn't write her in it because he would have probably just killed her if he did want to bring her in. Because the other guys was a knife, you're done for. And I don't think anyone cared. I really don't. And that's where these shows come into it. That not that you could build up a character in time, you'll be good that they died. But it's like these guys didn't get to do anything bar like the opening sort of hour of Thor, maybe, politely put, because they've got nothing to do in Thor 2. We had to sit through that shit show recently, actually.
I think that they're doing like the first battle in the first few minutes, and then that's all you hear from them while Thor mopes around in his grey vest, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Exactly, and it's like, oh, okay, I really like them in Thor 1. When they come down to Earth, there's that really funny thing of just them waving through the windows, and there's a place for them, and I don't think they're characters that have got that treatment on screen. So it's what that sort of Disney Plus stuff's for. It's giving limelight to some people that we've not been able to see, or just go into them and just do things with them, which I think would be earned.
I think it's nice because Lady Sif, she appeared in Age of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think she's one of the only big characters that kind of appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that came from sort of the MCU. I know Nick Fury turned up a couple of times, but she was kind of a major character for them to come in. So she's had a little appearance. I think it would be really nice to get more rounding of that story. And I don't think you need to take it from just the Thor movies. You would probably go earlier than that. They don't have to, like Crusade, don't have to have adventures where it's off with Thor and Thor's just around the corner fighting some other guys while we're here. Yeah. Just see Molyneux swinging just in camera sort of shots sometimes, but no, I think it's a really good set of characters to be followed again.
Maybe Thor could be like the Luke Skywalker cameo in like the very final episode.
Yes.
Maybe we could, even if we can't get him back, just CGI him in. It'll be fine. He'll fit right at home.
Just bring in Liam Hemsworth. Like we couldn't afford Chris.
Oh,
and
discount.
Then it could even play into the whole Ragnarok play thing, which we know they're doing again.
It's like Diet Hemsworth, isn't it, Liam? Like, bless him. Like, he tries.
Was he in the Hunger Games? I think that's the last thing I saw him in.
Yeah, that's the one.
Speaking of Thor, I'm going to go into my fifth pick, which is this is one I'm really forward to. My pick is it's a series called The Grandmaster. Listen, when Disney Plus launched, one of the main shows on launch was the Jeff Goldblum documentary. It's just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, just doing and interacting with things. And it was like, yeah, we're sold. Why? Because Jeff Goldblum. And I want to say he did a bit of a renaissance since Thor Ragnarok, and he was wonderful in it. And he was one of the highlights of that film. And one thing that stuck with me was when they start playing the China Chocolate Factory song, when Thor's getting transported through on the chairs. And I was kind of sitting thinking, what do I want to see? And I was like, well, we basically already have it. I want a Grandmaster origin story, but I also want it to be like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, where he's ascended to this throne. He's got his weird like cousins, his stick thing that melts people, how he creates his gaming universe and all that stuff. There's a comedy series, a mini series, not outright, like I know. Yeah, it's going to be exactly like Parks and Rec. It's going to be a mockumentary series on the Grandmaster's rise to power, and I think Marvel needs that. And you're giving Jeff Goldblum the flagship. And let's go one step further. Let's bring in Taika Waititi to write it, because God knows that guy is already trapped doing Star Wars and Thor 4 and probably loads of them. He's one of those directors where his name's attached on so much stuff, half it's probably not going to get made. But we need Goldblum back in the MCU. And if a prequel's too adventurous, then let's go for a gritty drama. Let's have the sequel where it starts with him being dropped on the ground in that credit scene and how he has to reclaim his place at the back of not the top, back of the throne, right at the top of the block, because his face is projected on it. We just need Jeff Goldblum leading the MCU, and you can bring in cameos. You can have people fighting in the arena. You can have all that stuff, but there is insane potential here.
And he's just sorry.
Go on, sorry. No, go on.
Sorry, just step over here. I think he's just such a Jeff Goldblum is getting more and more Jeff Goldblum as the years go on. As each project he gets, he becomes more the Goldblum that we all kind of enjoy. And it's just this personality he's got. And when you were comparing to Willy Wonka, you mean the original version, not that awful Johnny Depp movie.
They're both great. They're both great. I like the Johnny Depp one. I'm willing to.
It's all right. You're allowed to be wrong. This might be your channel, but you're allowed. It's okay. But yeah, I think the more Goldblum, the better, and I think you'd be a great character again to follow the adventures of. And again, I think you're right. Like, it doesn't matter. Again, I've said it before, but where you join the story. But I think he's just such a good character.
I think when Goldblum played the Grandmaster, it was Goldblum achieving final form, really, wasn't it? In that film. The guy's become a meme now. Now, I don't think you could have like half-hour, 45-minute episodes. I think Goldblum works in small doses. I could see a mini-series. I could see like short little episodes on like 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here of life lessons told by the Grandmaster, Jeff Goldblum. I could see something like that, definitely. And I think because of the success of this, he had his little stint on Disney Plus with his own show, didn't he? I don't know if that's still ongoing or if it was like a one-off. So something in the same vein as that. Or there was that great video, I don't know if it was just on YouTube, though, where he's in a band. And doesn't he liquidize... Go on, sorry. What was it?
Is this his real band or a fake one? Sorry.
No, this was as the Grandmaster. There was a video on YouTube. I remember seeing it where he gets invited into a band and he ends up like liquidizing them all or vaporizing them. You remember that? Yes,
I think... it's going to ruin me. Taika did short films... Like what are they called? Where vlogs? They kind of did them. They did amazing ones of Thor during Civil War on Earth in Australia, and then he did a sequel one of the Grandmaster. And I do remember that he was in the band and melted them all. And what you'd want is that even if it's a 5-minute, you just need it as that mockumentary, because the goal with mockumentaries, and this is where I know to talk WandaVision really briefly. The episode that didn't work necessarily for the sitcom stuff was the Modern Family one. But the one that nailed that was Katherine Hine in that episode, because she's done mockumentaries. She's done it before. She knows how to do it. It's about not just the delivery of lines, but it's that look to the camera. You know full well Goldblum, anytime he needs to make contact with that camera, it is going to be golden for this. And the fact that he was even bigged up in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they stuck his face in the credit sequences, just him dancing. This guy is on a projection path. And you are, Chris, it's final form, Jeff Goldblum. And I know we are getting him back in Jurassic World 3, and I know that they did want to reunite the original cast, but the reason he's back in that lineup, the reason why I think it's the Mildred Snitcher Orchestra is their name, that his jazz band, I did see them live. That was fucking incredible. All of this to me comes after Ragnarok. I think Ragnarok's really reinvented him in a really polite way. I think it's given him that chance to come back out there, and full play to Taika for going with it, and also for Jeff Goldblum for going along with it too, because the National Geographic, I think it was just one series. It was a one and done, but it was like him buying shoes and like eating ice cream, just like everyday occurrences. But it was just funny because it was him.
I just want him to get into a pod, and then Korg's minute with the knives gets in the other pod, and then crossover, and honestly, it shuts down like a Brundle sort of thing, and just get the whole thing with him tearing off bits of it as he changes. I love the Fly.
So good.
I shall move on to my first pick if you are done, my friend. And I'm going to keep it on an Asgardian level. I think we should just keep it as we are talking, because I'm literally going to say points that you've both already said. But my idea was sort of an Asgard series, because like Chris said, it's just such an amazing place to have stories behind. But mine is, you kind of took everything I want to say, a really dark take. I want to see the brutal Hela and Odin when they're just out and blitzing all these other, just, genocide generally, killing other people, but like a real Vikings feel, like Chris said, like just full on. It'd probably be on Star, not D Plus, maybe, but that still counts, right? Because I just think it needs to be like Hela described, that they go around and they would just destroy and take what they wanted from all these other pockets of life. And I just think it would be an amazing show to follow how dark Odin was and why Hela had to be imprisoned away so far down while until Odin actually physically died, that she couldn't come back. I'd love to see the story of how we got there with her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when I was, because everything crosses over with the Marvel comics, so when I was reading about Lady Sif, there was a lot of stories with her that tie in with Hela, which I don't know if they could ever tell those stories because of sort of the continuity that the films have gone with and sort of the history of Hela there. But yeah, Kate Blanchett was amazing. She was, I may not have been the biggest fan of Ragnarok, but I certainly was of her in that film. And, seeing her past with Odin and literally anything set in the world of Asgard, I would be okay with, because it's just such a phenomenal world. And we're not going to get that in present day MCU timeline now because, well, Asgard went boom, boom, didn't it? So, yeah, I mean, if we get a prequel series in whatever guise, and I mean, if we could get Kate Blanchett back, that would be incredible. I think she was always bad, wasn't she? She wasn't sort of good at one point, like a sort of like Maleficent situation where I can't remember Ragnarok if they say she was good and then she was betrayed or something and she went evil, or if she was just always inherently evil. I don't know, but I need more Asgard in my life, so I'd be totally cool with that.
Yeah, I think the stuff I love, and this is something I only spotted, well, not even spotted, I saw on Twitter recently, was obviously Taika's from New Zealand, so when he didn't write Ragnarok, I think he did do like sort of a final draft of it to help polish it, but one of the things he really wanted to include was that imagery of Hela and Odin being the sort of colonialism stuff. I think because of his origins in New Zealand, I think he's an Aboriginal in his roots, he very much shares that, and it was so subtly done, and I think that was some of my favourite stuff of it. As much as I love the comedy, when you were getting into that stuff with the palace and how Hela's saying, he's trying to, getting topical, this monarchy is trying to hide their past and all that kind of stuff, and I was kind of like, that's so interesting that there is stuff to show there, and you might not even need Anthony Hopkins for it, being politely put. Like, if you wanted to go that far back, you could go for someone else. But I think the Hela stuff, I think she was always evil. I think when Odin, I've not rewatched it yet, that's how far I'm up to. But I think when Odin matured, Odin realized this is wrong. I need to stop doing this. I think that's when Hela gets worse, because it's that whole, he betrayed me, when actually he sort of realized what he'd done. Took responsibility. It's not hard. Yeah, it's one of them where I like that. And what has made, I'm going to bring that photo back up. I love that kind of old artistic sort of Matt stuff, and seeing stuff like that in Thor was amazing, the old murals and things like that. But I just love the concept of just them two going along doing murderous things, and even going back to Thor 1, when you have the opening scene where it's the sort of Odin destroying, the forest giants not taking the world, but he won the battle, and you get comments throughout the first two films where it's kind of like, you took everything from us, you did this sort of thing, and not saying that was ever planned, but I like the fact that even on a rewatch of the old Thor films, that moment of Hela saying he wasn't this good guy, that has weight to it, because they do actually tease something, brackets not intentionally.
I could see like an animated series or maybe something done with it. Like you brought up that picture there. I think that'd be really cool if you couldn't have like the big budget for like all these extras and the CGI and everything that would be required. I think that an animated series would just look equally as good and still fill in those gaps, and you wouldn't have to pay Kate Blanchett to be on screen. You could just, get her in as like a voice acting job, which would probably still be really expensive now I think about it, but probably not as expensive as getting her in the costume in person. But yeah, I think that'd be cool too.
The animation thing, I think, is an excellent point, because you've seen Raya and the Dragon, and those Disney films that use that sort of trope of having that animated style, like the 2D, not quite perfect, sort of off kilter for certain styles and designs. I think they could really, really dig deep into that with an animated show as well. I think that could be like a really, really dark and awful TV show.
Well, let's hope Disney are listening to this. We're giving you ideas. These are free ideas, Disney. You don't even need to pay us right now. They're not free. Oh, they might not pick up this idea though. So this is my next pick. So this is my number 4 pick. So working from 5 to 1. He is in the MCU, and I would like to see more of him. We've got Howard the Duck. I'm just going to let that hang for a while. So all of you stop laughing. Okay, right. I'm going to explain my my pick right now. So he got very short shrifted with the film that came out, the George Lucas produced, whatever it was, film that came out. Let's not talk about that one now. We've established very much the cosmic world in Marvel and how ridiculous it is. And, you know, by throwing him in as the post-credit scene in Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, James Gunn was clearly doubling down on that. You can even keep Seth Green. Seth Green, you know, has done a lot of voice work. He does so much voice work. It's probably more famously recently with TV series, it's Robot Chicken, which is equally hilarious. And I think you could take a lot of that style of humor, keep Seth Green going, and have him still be the voice for Howard the Duck. So I spent most of my afternoon reading through the Wikipedia entry on Howard the Duck, which is something I never thought I'd be doing on my Friday evening, but here I am anyway. And it's such an outlandish concept. It's so out there, but apparently a lot of the comic books, like the original ones anyway, were done in a very satirical way, a very meta way. They were very aware of the ridiculousness of the concept, but they brought a lot of humanity, dare I say, to the character of Howard the Duck. A lot of it was, you know, satire. It was sort of a pastiche, a parody on certain genres. And they really delved in sort of like the existential crisis that Howard the Duck as a character was having. So there are many different origin stories. Apparently, one that was thrown out there was that he comes from a parallel dimension where ducks were the ones that evolved and became these anthropomorphic ducks, and through a wormhole in space is brought into our world. And he has a love interest, Beverly, and I was reading about their dynamic too. She is human, by the way, so that is kind of weird to just get that out of the way off the bat, but they have like a kindred spirit almost between the two of them, because Howard the Duck gets to the point where, I think this would be a really good moral. It's a very Disney moral, to not be judged on your appearance. Howard the Duck constantly hates being either talked down to or ridiculed because of his appearance, when, you know, he wants to be seen for the person that he is inside rather than the visual representation of the duck. And Beverly is an artist model, and she comes at it from her angle. She has like a similar thing where everyone judges her on her appearance and makes assumptions about her because of her, you know, her good looks and everything, and no one sees her for the person she really is. So the two kind of connect in that way, and I think that's a really nice story. I think that's a really sweet story. I think there's something there, and I think it would work as like an episodic thing, because you read about some of the villains that Howard the Duck fights in his comic books. And I'm going to read through a few of the names now. They're ridiculous. There is a vampiric cow called Bessie the Hell Cow. I want to see that in a TV show. There is a supervillain called Dr. Bong, who has a bell on his head, who clangs the bell and sends psychic abilities out. Oh my god, there's so many. There's someone who's like obsessed with like liver and thinks the human spirit comes from the liver or something. Ridiculous stuff that I never thought I'd be reading. I don't know how this has come from the brain of one man or whoever wrote this comic book originally, but I think it could be really out there. I think you'd have to embrace the ridiculousness of it. The CGI on Howard the Duck per episode probably would get pretty expensive, especially for like a Disney Plus TV series, so I don't know how they could get around that. But hell, we've done Guardians of the Galaxy. We've done a talking tree. We've done a talking raccoon. You put Howard the Duck in at the end. He even got a cameo in Endgame as part of the final lineup in the portal scene. So at this point, Marvel can do no wrong. Just get a Disney Plus series out there. I think that would be the best realm for that character. I don't think you could do a film. I think it would have to be like a very tongue-in-cheek Disney Plus TV series. I'd like to see more Howard the Duck done right this time.
I think it sounds amazing just hearing those names. I don't even need to know about them. Just those names out loud is good enough for me. I think with these guys, what you said, that the fact he popped up in Endgame, could you imagine a show where he's like reciting his experiences in the final battle, or just something like that, and you're getting like PTSD flashbacks to him stood with all the Avengers and all that kind of thing. It's just with these shows, you don't get me wrong, we love WandaVision, and we know that Falcon Winter is going to be quite serious, but you're at a whole new market now where you can just upload whatever you want online. You can do whatever you want online. And why not go for them really sort of niche, funny stuff? It's like kind of, not to bring George Lucas because Howard the Duck, but he encouraged companies to spoof Star Wars. He was so open to people's like mockery and interpretation of it. And to me, there's nothing better than when something is self-aware. And I guess even Disney have kind of displayed that with that Lego Star Wars special they dropped last year, that you could do something with those lines with Howard the Duck. You don't need to sell Marvel to anybody anymore. They're in based on the name.
I think it's interesting that you brought Howard the Duck as well, because he was they were in line to do a TV show for Hulu with Kevin Smith was to be the showrunner. But that got cancelled by Hulu early in 2020. It got cancelled and pulled. I think it was more because Disney Plus was looking after their properties and what they had out there. So that was certainly something that was in line. And I mean, obviously, I kind of have a really soft spot for Howard the Duck because I really kind of like the original movie in a really terrible way. It's awful. But, it's Leah Thompson's and she likes to either sleep with her son or ducks. So it's just a weird character trait that she has. But yeah, so I think it would be an excellent series. I think it would be awesome to maybe even give it like the Robot Chicken guys with Seth Green obviously already having the voice behind the character. I think it might be a really interesting take on that as well, where you could do it in that claymation animated style as well.
I think from like the structure of it as well, I think I could see it in, especially like the first Deadpool, in a very similar way from that, how it sort of drops you in the middle of the action. And, general audiences might not know about the origin of this particular character. And then he says, wait, let me take you back and tell you how I got to this point here. And then we get the whole character history. So maybe it'd be a good way to get Benicio del Toro in it as well, get him back as the Collector. Let's find out how Howard the Duck ended up with the Collector. Start it right there. Internal monologue, Seth Green, you might be wondering how I got here. Flashback, get the Howard the Duck origin, get some of that, have him get out of the Collector, maybe show some clips from Endgame, and then get him to Earth through the wormhole and meet Leah Thompson. Who knows? Bring her back. Why not? Maybe not at this point, but yeah, Howard the Duck, number 4 pick. There's so many ideas, Disney. Take it, Howard the Duck.
There's so much potential, and sticking with that Guardians of the Galaxy theme, my 4th one's kind of in that same world. Mine's going to be a series called The Ravages, and you see him right there, Sylvester Stallone. Probably one of the most, not outrageous castings in Marvel, but if you're going to sit there, this is probably the only film in Stallone's career where you can probably name 100 other characters before you get to him. And that's nothing against Stallone. That's literally like, oh my God, I forgot Stallone was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like, what's he doing there? And we know that obviously he's good friends with James Gunn. He's going to be in Suicide Squad as well. He's announced recently. But at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we get a new setup. We're introduced I love the Ravages in the first film, and you not necessarily wanting to know more, but it's like there's a world there, the whole concepts of it, and I want to see more of it, like how and why. And when we got those scenes in Guardians 2, it's like, oh, Stallone's randomly there. There's some other characters, and then he gets the credits. I was like, wait, that talking head, is that Miley Cyrus? And then you realize that Ving Rhames is one of them, and the Lex Luthor guy from not Superbad, from what's the Superman show? Smallville, that's the
Smallville
one. And they set something up beautifully. There's like a great shot of them all together, and originally Barbie was going to be one of these characters. That's what James Gunn said when they were in discussions for a cameo, but I don't know if we're going to see them in Volume 3 or in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, but can you imagine a kind of space Expendables starring Sylvester Stallone with these weird aliens and these weird things? And I just need to see it. I honestly don't care how bad it is. I just want to see Stallone be in Marvel still, because it was when he had that suit, it had like the orange like curls, and he looked really badass. It's like Stallone actually suits this role, and that was the other thing. Like, yes, we know it's Stallone. I think he's called Starhawk. I think that's his name. You can't really use that when we've got a Star Lord. That would just confuse people. But we just need a series of Stallone traveling, the galaxy with his crew, killing people, recruiting people, doing whatever we need to do. The Space Expendables, it's being pitched exactly as that. I need to see more of it. I think we deserve more of it. They can make it a drama. They can make it action. They can do what they want. But we've heard he's not going to be in Creed 3 as of this week's news. So he's going to have that space to come into it.
Is he actually called Starhawk? Because I just googled it. Like, he did a film in '81 called Nighthawks, and that's all I can think of. That's madness. I've only seen Guardians Volume 2 once when it first came out, so I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't even remember him in it. Like, I vaguely have some sense. I know it was towards the end, but you've got me on Sylvester Stallone alone. Like, that's it. He gets a free pass for life for me. All you've got to tell me, you don't even need to tell me about his character, about the whole history about it, about how it's tied into Guardians of the Galaxy. You just need to tell me Marvel series, Sylvester Stallone, and I'm good. That's good enough for me.
And I think if you're going to have Stallone, you need more Stallone in this world, where he's revisiting sort of that Demolition Man and Judge Dredd sort of vibe about him when he was in those just big, trashy, knows how, probably knew how stupid they were, but really just played into it. And I think that kind of character, he does comedy really well when he goes out to actually do it. And I think he can play that big amazing character in a really good space setting. Yeah, it was more Stallone, all the better.
What I love of so much, sort of final thing, is that in that film, his issue with Yondu is that Yondu abducted a child. When you think of Stallone, he's always had them life lessons in him. And so, like, he originally didn't like Yondu because Yondu had been abducting children and giving them to not Kevin Spacey, fucking hell no, to Kurt Russell. Completely wrong name. That's really bad. That wasn't intentional. So it's brilliant that Stallone aspect of just him like pontificating across the galaxy, like giving people life lessons of what they've done good and bad. And I'm really going to swiftly move on from that.
The greatest MCU villain of all time, Kevin Spacey.
I do not know anywhere near his snap. Anyway, moving on to other children. My next pick is going to be from the purchase of the Fox franchise over to Marvel, would be X-23. And I want to see an awesome series. I'd love to see Daphne Keane cast back in this again. I'd like to see her character brought through. I thought she was really good in the TV show, the HBO BBC one, the base with the polar bears and stuff.
His Dark Materials.
That's the one. Thank you very much. I thought she was really good in that show, and she's actually grown as an actress. I mean, she must be about 15, 16, 17 now. So she's getting up that way. I just think it'd be a really nice place to revisit, set a few years after Logan's finished. So they've gone on to Eden, where they were heading for, maybe forming the New Mutants, which is kind of where Logan was kind of hinting at when they're all getting together. So I just think a series with the beginning of their story, obviously the old X-Men are gone. There's nothing left of that. So it's that continuation of a new X-Men with a brand new breed of characters. I think it could be really nicely done. I think she'd be excellent. She's so good in Logan. I can't see why she wouldn't be able to carry that off with her own series.
I thought she was absolutely, yeah. I mean, everyone pretty much says she was outstanding in Logan, and she was. I actually think she was probably the standout in that whole film, and she was like the real emotional center for that film. I'd love a continuation in some way. And now I don't know sort of what the state is of X-Men. I think even the X-Men films that even followed that don't know what the state of X-Men. No X-Men film that follows any X-Men film knows what happened in the previous X-Men film. It's really frustrating. It's the most inconsistent film series I think I've ever seen. But I would, not saying like an absolute, like a definitive sequel to Logan, but just a continuation and seeing more of her character and seeing how those events from that film have changed her, if at all, and see what adventure she goes on next. So this would probably be another one that would have to be on Star or whatever it's called on Disney Plus. If you are going to follow it on from what Logan set up, definitely. But anything with her. And I didn't watch all of his Dark Materials, and I keep forgetting that she was the actress from Logan in that. I mean, I'd love to see more of her in the Marvel films.
Yeah, sorry. My internet cut there. No, easy. Logan is such a unique film where anyone that tampers with that legacy is difficult. But with Kevin Feige saying, Deadpool's going to be in Marvel and it will be rated R and it will be done justice. There is a window now. They have Star. That's going to me change all of Disney's future distribution, not issues, but we can't do that. Well, now you can. You literally have a platform, right? So I approve anyone on my account that say that they're 18 plus. There is a space for this now, and I think audiences are maturing in the sense of, yes, it's proven fantasy stuff like Deadpool, but people can take darker stuff, even for Avengers films that are rated 12. You get some pretty grim things in these films, some really dark stuff when you think about it. And, kids that were, I think, screaming and crying during Infinity War, during the snap, that was a big thing at the time. So what's wrong with giving, I think she's probably about 16, 17 now, I'd guess. Why not just bring her back and kill some more mutants, or bring her into the MCU? Do what you want, but Daphne Keane was the standout of that film. And the fact that somebody could outshine Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart in their farewell Marvel films, and it was a 12-year-old girl, that is extraordinary. And I've not seen his Dark Material, so I can't comment on that. But again, that show's been very well received, and you kind of getting this generation coming through of these really young sort of actor and actresses, and she's going to be one of the standouts.
Was Logan her first film? I can't remember if it said and introducing her in the main credits when she first came out.
I think it was the first one.
I mean, like, what a way to open your career, right, with that film. But Yeah, like there's been talks about, and I think George, like you've theorized as well, like possibly they would do like a younger mutant kind of thing, not the New Mutants. Christ, let's get away from that film, like the death throes of the X-Men franchise with that film. But if they do choose to sort of go with like a younger cast, a younger ensemble, I think she could be our new Wolverine. Like and you'd have that brilliant introduction from her in the previous film. So definitely. Right, I'm going to move on to my third pick now. This is talking about this is just such a heavy heart. This one, my number 3 pick is Daredevil. Now, I'm coming at this from a really interesting perspective because as of now, I still haven't watched The Defenders and I still haven't watched Daredevil season 3, despite the fact it being one of my favorite TV series I've ever seen. It was outstanding. Season 1 especially. Season 2 was good, but season 1 was an absolute masterpiece. I have never seen, or very rarely seen, a character that has done so much justice from the page to the screen. A series that I was really hesitant for before going into it, and it blew me away. It was astoundingly written, perfectly acted. Everything was set up. There wasn't a wasted episode. Everything had an arc, and it was beautiful, and it all came together. And currently Daredevil is in this weird nebulous area where he's sort of caught in between Netflix and the MCU. Now, I think they do have plans for Charlie Cox to return as Matt Murdock. I don't know about Daredevil, but definitely Matt Murdock. I think there's rumors that he's going to be in, well, I mean, who isn't going to be in the new Spider-Man film, right?
It's not like, I think we're in Spider-Man at some point.
So, it was like that point, like every day they were announcing someone else who was going to be in the new Spider-Man film. I heard rumors that he's going to appear in She-Hulk as well. So they clearly have plans for him in that respect to sort of keep him in the MCU family. And having Matt Murdock's great, but I need this whole ensemble back. I need Karen, I need Foggy, I need Kingpin, I need all of these characters that were set up so beautifully as well. And I don't know where Daredevil is now, and not just him, but like all the Netflix crew. And that's kind of why I dropped off, because Daredevil was so good. I enjoyed Jessica Jones, and it was sort of like this steady decline with the rest of them. And because I couldn't keep up, there were so many series to keep track of. I would be happy just to get Daredevil out of this crew, because I honestly don't think you could cast anyone better. It's too soon to reboot it now at this point. You're never going to get a better Kingpin than with Vincent D'Onofrio. Like, I defy anyone to play that role as well as he did. And there's also so many avenues where you could take Daredevil as a character in the greater MCU. Now he is home with all of these other characters. He has a lot of ties to Spider-Man. There are a lot of instances in comic books where the two of those team up together. Maybe you could do something with that. Kingpin is one of Spider-Man's biggest enemies, I would say. So you could cross Vincent D'Onofrio into that as well. There's so much you could do with Daredevil, but the one stipulation I would have, and the one thing that I don't think they would be able to do on Disney Plus, is you've got to keep it a mature series. You've got to have it be gritty. You've got to have it be violent. And I was really worried about that before going into Netflix, because I thought, it's Disney. I thought Disney still had some kind of ownership of the character when that series was coming out, and I was worried that it was going to be really dumbed down and sort of like very 12A-ified. And no, like, what was it, episode 1 or 2? Vincent D'Onofrio slams someone's head in with a car door, and it's one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. You'd have to retain that quality for it to feel like a continuation and at home with Daredevil. And I don't know if Disney Plus is the right avenue for that series, but if they are continuing the character in some way and they lose the tone, they've instantly lost what makes the character. And coming from Hell's Kitchen and that world, that very violent, dark world, I just need Daredevil back. I need him back. And if he comes back, then I can go back to Defenders and I can watch season 3. But as of right now, I can't watch those because for me, the pain is still too real. And I can't bring myself to watch a series which I think was setting up Bullseye at the end of season 3. I have heard rumors of that. I think we were going to get his arch nemesis of all time in season 4. And then, like the Thanos snap, it was all of them were wiped out overnight. So bring Charlie Cox back, and especially bring Daredevil back. That's my number 3 pick.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you on this. That I remember, I've only seen season 1 and 2. I think I dropped off. I think I didn't finish Luke Cage. It wasn't Luke Cage that put me off. It was knowing that, fucking hell, I've actually got to watch Iron Fist. To get
that's Iron Fist did it for me. Yeah,
and like, there's a fascinating conversation to be had on the Netflix stuff, but Kevin Feige knows full well that the best thing out of all of that was, I mean, there were many great things in those Marvel shows, but he showed willingness. He's cast oh my god, I've forgotten his name, not Kevin Spacey this time, who's going to be playing Blade in the MCU.
Oh, Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. In fact, Mahershala Ali has already been cast in the MCU, and he's willing to say, he's been in that role, but we want him as this guy. He's going to have to be this character, and there's a place for Matt Murdock, and I really hope he's in Spider-Man. I'm very nervous if he is going to be in Spider-Man, just because there's a lot to juggle. There's a lot of things that haven't been confirmed. But before you start bringing in Daredevil as probably a supporting character, nail the other Spider-Man actors who are going to unofficially come back for this film first. So I'm very worried. However, if it's a one scene and did he work in the MCU, I think we're going to get him. We know that Marvel's reclaimed the rights. I think the only reason Daredevil was cancelled was because they could only retain the rights to the characters if they can't outright formally cancel the Netflix shows. So they've been on this sort of trajectory for the last few years where I think as of a month ago, they've got the whole Netflix crew basically back in their pocket now. So I think there's plans for him, but I'd want to see this too. I think what they'd really need to do, I think they probably would 12 AFI it, but they need to bring him into the MCU in a way that people can go back and watch Daredevil and not the Easter egg not be a newspaper on the wall. It needs to be we've outright seen him now. We've seen him interact with characters. Now let's let him do his own thing. And I really hope they can do that with Charlie Cox, because obviously the rumors are if there's a court scene. And if he ain't appearing in that court scene, then let's just kiss all hopes goodbye.
I just want Iron Fist back. No, I'm just kidding. He's awful. What a terrible show that was. But no, you know what? This talk of Daredevil, that's all I want to do is go and watch series 1 of Daredevil again, because Chris, you said it, you nailed it. It's just pretty much, in terms of Marvel television, is just a perfect series, and it's Charlie Cox is amazing in both roles. Just the whole crew, I just loved that show so much. And if we can get Daredevil back in any way, shape, or form, that's the one I want, with a Ben Affleck cameo too.
I'd be down for that. I think I'm the only human being that likes that film, but let's just get Charlie Cox in it for now. I mean, DC are having a hard time enough getting Ben Affleck in their own films at the moment, so let's not bring him back into the Marvel films just yet.
No, and that one being said, I'm going to move into my third choice. This is one I really enjoyed. We spoke about recently. This is the Howling Commandos. These guys need their own show, not including Bucky. One of the things I loved about Captain America 1 wasn't the fact it was Captain America, it was a war film. But Chris, you nailed on the head. It was that kind of what type of this is really bad. I keep forgetting what I'm meant to be saying tonight. My notes have been poor. It's a very like camp aesthetic. I think that's the word used, and it's that this is World War II, but it feels like not a comic, but you know, that sort of propaganda-esque vibe into that. The buildings look nice. They don't look worn out and like you filmed old buildings with modern technology. It felt very much like a 40s environment. And what I would love to see, I believe these guys cropped up in Agent Carter season 2 in one episode, or at least the main one did. I would love to see, not a Band of Brothers-esque, because one of these guys was in Band of Brothers, but I like to see the end of World War II within the MCU, but these guys being involved in the final battles or something post-Cap being in the water, something post-Bucky being gone. Maybe you can bring in Peggy as a cameo. Maybe Tommy Lee Jones would crop up, who knows? But I would like to see what happened after, because obviously we know they won the war, but how big was that loss of Captain America to the war? How big was the loss of Hydra to that war? And I think there's a potential for a Marvel show that, yes, it's rewriting World War II, but a lot of shows have done that over the years. I think Das Boot's a really famous one. Is there Man in the Iron Sky, which is like an Amazon if the Nazis won type thing? And because I've always liked that sort of World War genre, the old sort of modern history stuff, I would just like to see Marvel's approach of the ending of World War II with these guys that we got to know ever so briefly, just kind of explaining what they were able to do that contribute to it. So, you know, it could drag on for multiple seasons if it was good enough, but I would like Joe Johnston back. I want the same sort of world, that same aesthetic, the same style, because to me that separated it from many of those sort of modern films or old films where it's that gritty, you know, Saving Private Ryan. I'm not going to criticize it, it's phenomenal, but I like the fact that they approached World War II in a very different mannerism to what many things do.
Yeah, and sort of comparing this to the pick that, like my first pick that I had, which was the Lady Sif one, the Warriors 3, I think your pick here would work better because I could see these characters interacting and working off each other and leading their own series more than I could Lady Sif. I feel like with that, you would need Thor with that crew. With this, it'd be great to have Captain America with them, but I don't think it would be a requirement. And obviously he can't anyway because he's in the ice at this point. So I don't know. Did they actually, in the MCU right now, do they outright say how they died, when they died, how long they lived for? Because I know that we see them in the memorial, but of course they would probably be dead at that point, right? So I don't know if they outright said whether they died in action or whether they survived the end of the war and continued.
All you get is in the Smithsonian and Winter Soldier, they've got all the costumes of Cap, and then it cuts to Bucky's, and it's like Bucky was the only Howling Commando to have been lost in the war. So we knew they got out of it, which I'm okay with. But I love that sort of history aesthetic. I don't know why that they were really cool. And even when they had a mini origin of Robbie in the tank and stuff, they felt quite likable as supporting characters that not anyone can probably name the name of. And if you can, it's Gum Gum, I think, is the main one. I'm always forgetting his name, but it's one of them where I think there's space for them. It doesn't need to be this mad expensive. You don't need your A-listers in it, but there's a place for it, and you can bring in that drama. And I think obviously we don't know what on earth's going to happen in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but Cap's going to very much be a character that his shadow looms large on obviously Bucky and Falcon. And I'd be loving that interest, that aesthetic in World War II, that the loss of Cap, this was their squad leader. They were not the super squad, but they were the Howling Commandos. They were at the forefront of the war. And I think there's so much potential. And if you got Tommy Lee Jones back, one of the standouts of that film, it'd probably be miserable to do. I think he did an article saying he didn't know what he was doing on set. He didn't have a clue what was going on. And bring him back and just let him shout or give abuse, or just bring him in for a couple lines. There's potential, and I'm all for it.
I think you could very much do like a toned down, almost Inglourious Bastards with them, just like really this big team who are going out and fighting throughout the war, and you can see where they go, and like you said, just the effect they had on different fronts, or when they got sent to certain parts that needed these guys to go along. So I think absolutely it could be done. Not in full Tarantino style, but brought down to much more of a Disney Plus level. I think it's still that sort of team up would be a really, really nice show, and you could really fill out a season with, because each character is obviously going to have their own stories to tell in that as well. So I think that would be a really nice full season of actual characters.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I mean, I need to see. Because I always said that I like their characters in the film, but I don't feel like I had enough of them, and that's why we're suggesting these shows. I want to see more of these characters, and then that will make the first Captain America film even more awesome when you go back to watch it, if there's a series that goes along with it. Okay, so we're on to Dave's pick now, aren't we?
My next pick, yeah. So my next one actually takes us right back to the Netflix shows. Not Daredevil and any of his surrounding characters, but someone from Jessica Jones. Not Jessica Jones herself, but about Kilgrave. And this is Kilgrave, played by the most amazing, just beautiful man, David Tennant. And if it's going to be brought back, it has to be Tennant who does it. He had such a presence in that first season, certainly of Jessica Jones. The way his character is portrayed, I thought, was just so dark, but just he's got that charm about him, and it's hard to kind of look past it sometimes, that he's playing this horrendous bad guy who can get people to do whatever he wants, and does, with a smile on his face, the most brutal and awful things. But I just love the character. I thought it was so well portrayed. David Tennant can do no wrong. I'm sorry, he just can't. Even when he appears in little bits of Harry Potter, he's still being amazing. And I just think, even with that tongue thing he does, it's awful, I know. But yeah, so this would be my other thing that I would bring back from Netflix. Although the rest of the stuff was good, and I did quite like Jessica Jones, Kilgrave for me was a real revelation of a character, and I'd love to see more story around him.
Yeah, like Jessica Jones was. I enjoyed Jessica Jones. I never got to season 2 though, because again, season 2 was post Iron Fist and post Defenders, and I couldn't watch them out of order. I couldn't do it to myself. The OCD was too strong, so I still haven't got to that. And did they end with a third series of Jessica Jones? I don't even know how many series they ended up doing.
Cancelled after 2.
Yeah,
I think.
I can't remember, but the one thing that I can remember from the show, and there's not much that I can remember from it, but it is David Tennant as Kilgrave. I remember, I think it was episode 1 of season 1. There's like a big twist or like a big revelation at the end where we see what he's capable of and how violent and how sadistic he can be, and that shocked me. And that is the one thing that is my big takeaway from it. Now, the purple, I believe he plays a character called the Purple Man. And he's not purple in it. They kind of make him more realistic for that world. He wears like a purple suit. Would we go full Marvel with this? Would we finally sort of like Red Skullify him and finally get him in that purple skin, make him look like Grand Admiral Thrawn? Would we do it?
Why not? You know what? I'm sure it'd be absolutely up for it. If they're going to put in Falcon the Winter Soldier, if they're going to put Baron Zemo in the purple balaclava, then why not?
Yeah, it's Kilgrave's one of them where you look at David Tennant, and I think at the time, not to sort of shit him, he hadn't done many different roles. He was still very much the Doctor. We've seen him in a couple of other things. Obviously, Broadchurch was a big hit, but I remember when Jessica came out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, David Tennant is a terrifyingly incredible villain. This is nothing like we've seen him in before." And I remember absolutely loving that, and that was a really big thing. And you know, when there's a hype leading in something, it kind of not puts you off, but you're like, is David Tennant going to be as good as they say? Is it the fangirls? Not to sort of criticize them. And I was taken aback at how terrifying he was in that. And he was, I mean, just because I very much enjoyed the series, but he was the best thing in that series. And I can't remember if he popped back up in season 2 or something. I didn't get that far, but there's space for him. And if anyone's seen his lockdown stuff, it's just him and Michael Sheen just doing videos with each other. Bring Michael Sheen into it. I don't care how or why. We need more of them together. I just think David Tennant is just neat. There's never been too much David Tennant. And, you know, a lot of actors fall under that trap. I'm not going to sort of shit on the MCU, but I think Loki's one of them. So we're going to really test our patience, I think, in June, for me personally. But no, I can't say no to David Tennant in anything I see him in truth.
Absolutely. Right. My number 2 pick. And again, I think all these ideas have come from like the reviews that we've done fairly recently that are sort of like jogged our mind on some of them. My number 2 pick is The Incredible Hulk. Now, I don't know the legalities surrounding the Hulk. I think this would probably be on Paramount Plus before it would be on Disney Plus. But I'm picking The Incredible Hulk anyway because, by God, he's in the Marvel films, he's in the Avengers films, so therefore it counts. I mean, this is sort of a no-brainer for me. Number 1, we know that The Incredible Hulk can work as a TV show because it was originally a TV show with Lou Ferrigno, which I believe was very successful at the time. And I would like to see something not completely in the same vein as that. It would be a CGI Hulk for one, but more in that tone, that lonely man kind of style. I want to take Hulk back to his dramatic roots, really, because that is inherently what the character is. He's this very much a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He's a very tragic character. He sort of wants a happy life but can't seem to get one. Now, I think from where the Hulk sort of ends up with Endgame, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of how the Hulk was handled in Infinity War and Endgame, but I know that's a conversation for another time, where it seems like now he's found a state where he can be the Hulk, but still maintain the intelligence that he has when he's Bruce Banner. So I think you would lose out on a lot of the drama and a lot of the character interplay if you kept that storyline going. I think you would need the unhinged Hulk that could, you know, break out at any time and cause just masses of destruction. But this would be a way to tie up probably like the biggest loose ends in the MCU. When we did our Incredible Hulk conversation, the 2008 film is in this sort of similar to Daredevil at the moment. It's in this weird state where, is it in the MCU? Is it not in the MCU? We have Thunderbolt Ross, but we had the casting change and we've never gone back to Liv Tyler, and we've never gone back to Abomination's been mentioned, but we've never gone back to a lot of the other characters, supporting characters, and even the villain that it was setting up for the end, for the sequel that we never got for this film. So I think it would put to bed all those rests, and I would love to see all of those. I would love to see Liv Tyler come back, get her firmly in the MCU. So then we can go, okay, it is that original film was still a part of the MCU, but we've just had the casting change for Bruce Banner. And then I think that would help me overlook the Incredible Hulk a little bit more and go, okay, it is part of it, but they just changed the actor out. That's fine. You could bring back Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, I think his name was, who was going to go on to be the leader. They were setting him up for the sequel. We never got that. So you could have him be the big villain, maybe. You could bring Abomination back. Tim Roth has done TV shows before, so it's not out of the ordinary to bring him back for it. And I would like to see Mark Ruffalo, who I know is a great actor and has done some fantastic roles in the past, show more of the dramatic side. I know people like the funny side of the Hulk, and it might get a chuckle or two, but I think they went a little bit too overboard with the Hulk, and I would like to see them sort of rein it back and go more into that drama. And I think sort of like an episodic Hulk TV show. Some people might see it as like a regression of the character if we do go back to that. He's being chased by the authorities, he's being persecuted by the government or whatever. But I think there's a lot of interesting character interplay there, and I think you could make it very emotional. I think you could make it very dramatic, and we've seen the action that Marvel can do and Disney Plus can do with the likes of WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Looks like it's got some amazing action scenes in there that would probably be equal to a feature film. So you could still have your Hulk destructive sequences as well in there, I'm sure. So if anything, just in an effort to clear up all those loose ends from that original Incredible Hulk film, and I know that we can't do a sequel film, let's go into a TV show, because I think you could dive into the character a lot more with that.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. I think Incredible Hulk, I think, is massively just shat on for no reason. I think a lot of that is Ed Norton. I know there are issues with the film, but it's such an easy target because they recast the Hulk, and I don't like it when stuff does that. I think there's a lot worse we've seen in not just the MCU, but many Marvel properties. And it's time has passed. The fact that, you know, when Ruffalo came in Avengers, like, oh my God, this guy he is Hulk. That is definitive now that he is Hulk. And he was cropping up as like supporting role in Thor, supporting role in this, supporting role in She-Hulk. And it's kind of there, like, you know, throw the damn towel. It's kind of like make the damn deal. Just like just do something, get the character rights back. And that's such an annoying issue because it's something where they probably don't want the hassle of just getting business done. So it's really a shame that legalities have stopped this from being a thing. I think, although I've got my own thoughts on, not Tobey Maguire, on Tom Holland, the fact that they sat down and says, right, let's get this thing just bloody sorted out. Let's fix our issues and let's just get him in this franchise because he deserves to be in here and have his own films. No matter what opinions we have of them, you cannot have this franchise really without Spider-Man and the Hulk. And it's a shame that for a Hulk film, you have to go back to 2008. You know, it's one of the relics of the MCU now. And I think TV would suit him well. It's going back to the roots, as you said, the Lou Ferrigno stuff and the one man, the Lone Agent. You could do a lot with the TV format with him too. You could spice up the narrative, do anything you want different, but there's a story to tell there. And there's open threads. We're getting the bloody Abomination coming back. And it's just kind of like, but nothing for him, nothing for Ruffalo. So we'll take our supporting roles as they come and go. We don't know the next time we'll see him, if it will still be Professor Hulk or whatnot. But I think the time is now. And I think every year they always say there's going to be a Hulk film. They're finally doing a deal, but we know it ain't happening. That ain't it, Chief.
It's such a shame that it's tied up in the legalities it is between studios, and it's one of the things that Marvel probably hate the most, that the different studios have a couple of their really big properties that they're desperate to get back and probably won't because why they're going to let that kind of thing go. But I love the old Hulk TV show. I absolutely loved it when I was growing up, being the old man that I am. Got to enjoy it, and I absolutely love the portrayal of that. And I think just that as a show, like you say, going from town to town, helping out people, but with the Hulk and with the technology we've got now to show the Hulk is so much greater the potential of that show. And you don't have to, you could take Hulk back, like you said, like he's gone to the intelligent smart Hulk now. You could totally take him back to that time between when he was Ed Norton, but you know, as Ruffalo, and how he got to that stage to be in Brazil. And I think you could then tell that story, just different place, different bad guy of the week, like A-Team and things. You'd see those shows where they just go and help people in different places. I think it'd be a really, really nice move. I think it's awful that it's bogged down such a place where they can't have him in this for 10 minutes and this for 15 minutes. As long as they don't make it his movie, then it's okay. It's a sad state for it to be in for one of the main characters.
I wish they could go back and special edition that 2008 Hulk movie and just put Ruffalo in there, and then just get it firmly cemented in the MCU. Maybe the TV show could lead into that film as like a prequel thing, as you just mentioned. But yeah, I just want some Hulk. You know, is that too much to ask? Is that Disney? Give me what I want. Paramount, sort your shit out. Whoever it is, I don't even know who owns the Hulk. Does anyone know who owns the Hulk? I have no idea.
Universal.
There we go.
They have the steelbook is landscape. Let that be what exactly it wants to be.
Just let that sink in.
Yeah,
line in the sand.
I'm gonna get my number 2 pick. My number 2 pick is very different. This is one I actually adore. I'm going all out for Ant-Man and the Wasp. What do I hear you say that's listening and not watching the screen? This isn't a sequel to the film. This is a series set in the 1970s with a young Hank Pym. I almost said Hope Pym. It's Hope Van Dyne and Hank Pym. I've only seen Ant-Man 2 once, and I'll be rewatching it soon, so I'm not going to give my opinions on that. However, I remember being blown away. I mean, de-aging technology is fascinating. It's dangerous. But to me, the best 2 uses of it in the MCU has been on both these characters, and I've actually managed to get the shots here. I remember the opening scene of Ant-Man when you get young Michael Douglas. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my word, like ignore the fact that we've got an aging Peggy Carter behind him. We've got a young Hank Pym. And in Avengers Endgame, they do that amazing tease when they go back to the 70s and you've got the comic book Ant-Man helmet with the little antenna. And I was like, oh my God, like that is not just an Easter egg, that's phenomenal. I need to see more. And then you get this, which is going to excite, I think, Chris as a Batman fan. We got the young Michelle Pfeiffer.
She is.
And I'm not that familiar with her old work compared to Michael Douglas, but I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, like that is it done properly. And I know that's small scenes, but what we keep getting told in the first Ant-Man film is that they're on this mission and they were already a superhero couple, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of a thing with Peggy Carter there, and there was already world building back then. And I want to see more because Ant-Man is one of my favorite Marvel characters. I think Paul Rudd is great, but Michael Douglas really helped sell that film. I think when he has not necessarily comedic moments, but bringing in Michael Douglas to accompany Paul Rudd, that's not something a lot of people probably thought could work, but it did, and it worked so well. And he seems to really enjoy it as well. I might be wrong. He might be like, I absolutely despise that I'm contractually obligated to this, but he seems like the kind of guy that really enjoys doing it. And I think Michelle Pfeiffer getting a bit of the limelight again as well, coming into that. We know they're filming Quantumania. They're calling the third one. And I just want a small series. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be sort of, this is deep, this is how this happens. But I just love, them sort of Saturday morning cartoons when we're younger, like who are the superheroes, who are they fighting this week? I would just love something like that for these guys. Yes, it'd be abnormally expensive to de-age them. Maybe you'd want to bring in other actors, but let's go with the de-aging because let's all be honest, guys, Marvel aren't short of money. They can afford it if they really want it. And then have the season finale or the finale of the entire thing be when she goes missing or something like that. It's really an interesting topic that you get to see these iterations of these characters, but in a different era. And I think that's what I like more, that a lot of my picks have been very much era orientated, going back to the sort of the 40s or to sci-fi, to space, to fantasy. But I want to see that kind of 70s era because we've not really had that explored in superhero films. The closest I guess we can say is the Taxi Driver remake starring Joaquin Phoenix, which was just trying to be every Scorsese film from the 70s. And, why haven't we had superhero films set in that time? It's a really interesting decade, and all that hippie stuff, all the peace, and I think they'd be great together.
I would love this show. Now, you're right, it would be outrageously expensive, but I remember when they were doing Ant-Man and then more information started to come out about it, and I didn't know much about the Ant-Man character, but then you do some reading, it's like, Hank Pym, and you realize that he was the one who created Ultron, I think, wasn't it, in the comic book? So I know he had more to do with Ultron, I know that, and obviously they didn't do that in the film, so it's like, okay, they can't do that, what are they going to do? And then more information came out about it that we're going to skip Hank Pym, and we're going to go to the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang, as the main sort of like origin film. I was like, and I didn't like that at the time. Now I've just come to accept it, and I like what they've done, and I like how they've worked in the original Hank Pym to like decades before. I thought that was really well handled how they did that. But when it flashes back to them two on missions, and I've only watched Ant-Man 2 once, so again, I can't really remember that, but I remember the missile scene from Ant-Man 1, and it's like, I want to see missions like that. I want to see more moments like that. So I know the CGI would be ridiculously expensive with, you know, the shrinking and the, you know, getting big and everything like that, but I would love to see those two actors come back for it. I think you would probably have to have a number of scenes where you have body doubles. I don't think you're going to get Michael Douglas in a girdle for like the entire series to do all these action scenes. To be honest, I don't think Michelle Pfeiffer needs one. She looks amazing now as she did back then. Like, my God, I don't know if that's money or if that's just all natural, but it's working for whatever she's doing. So you probably would have to have younger actors in, and then you'd have to like replicate the faces. So it would be a very expensive endeavor, but I would love to see more of those two together, because that was always the stuff that sort of commanded my attention in those Ant-Man films. And I still want to know more about them. Hopefully we get more about them in Ant-Man 3 as well.
Sorry, I've literally just been spending the last few minutes thinking about Michelle Pfeiffer and Fabulous
We all
Baker
have.
Boys.
We all have.
Sorry, if you haven't seen Fabulous Baker Boys singing on top of the piano, I recommend it right now. Leave this video, honestly. It's way better. So, you know what? It would make absolute... That sort of show would be one of those perfect sort of Saturday... For me, a Saturday afternoon, like a 5:30, just getting the evening, people are just settling down. A really fun family show. You don't have to have any big vans, just big and little adventures, I guess, because they shrink. But yeah, so I just think it would be a really, really great show. If you could get those two actors back to do it, you absolutely should. Paul Rudd could appear because he's ageless and you wouldn't have to do any sort of CG on his face for whatever you're doing. Just have him there, like, yeah, he's young or old, no one knows. But yeah, so I think it would be an absolutely perfect afternoon show just to have really, really fun times with.
Would it be too much of a cop-out to have both of them sort of in present day, sort of reminiscing about old times as old people, and then just have them in the CGI suits? Never have them take the masks off for the de-aging, just have them be on the missions as the characters. Yeah, exactly. Could you do that? Would that be a way to get around it, or is that too much of a cop-out, do you think?
Still work. For the odd scene they need to take the helmet off, they could get really in-depth with it and be like Dredd, like, we never took our helmets off on a mission. So
Yeah.
You can literally be them like, oh yeah, that's just someone being them. But yeah, it's there's a lot of potential. It reminds me, even discussing it now, not in a bad way, is harping back to sort of 60s Batman you can see behind me. It's what you said, it's that evening show, that fun family one. You can imagine, I know that's the 60s and this would be sort of 70s or maybe early 80s, depending on when it wants to be, but you could imagine all that stuff going ahead that really, like, haha, who's this over-the-top evil villain? You could have like insect villains and loads of other stuff, and there's so much potential. And I think that's what would work with it, is that because Hank Pym is serious and Paul Rudd's the comedy one, that dynamic, I know they wouldn't be together, but the fact we then get a more serious Ant-Man take just compensates Paul Rudd, because I think he's great. And, you know, I know that Peyton Reed obviously directed the first one and the second one, and we know he did an amazing job with the Mandalorian finale, but, you know, it was Edgar Wright that got Michael Douglas cast, and to me, that's one of the best casting decisions of the entire MCU. That brought gravitas when it was very established, but that was when, wait, Michael Douglas in a superhero film? You know, even more so than some of the other Oscar winners that have delved into that before.
For my fourth pick, I've gone very similar on this team-up sort of idea, but I'd really like to see Cap and Peggy. I want to see their adventures after this moment. Once that door's opened the morning after that night, we all know. It was 70 years. That's some pent up. Anyway, so yes, but I'd love to see, like, Agent Carter was a really nice series. It wasn't overly violent. It had some nice episodes. I haven't seen all of it. I've kind of dipped in and out at different episodes, but I really like her as a character, and I think her running S.H.I.E.L.D. was a really nice touch when she left that. So I really would like to see, because you can't say Captain America came back to that time period, stayed there all his life, and never had any sort of superhero adventures outside. Like, he just stopped and that was it. S.H.I.E.L.D. was down and he didn't want to do any more. So I'd love to see what happened in their later lives as they went on in their marriage. And it doesn't have to be like they work for S.H.I.E.L.D. again or they had an agency, but it could just be, again, just them having, again, I come back to it over it again in the series, just adventures. We don't get a lot of that these days in television. It's all a lot of, we want dark series, we want this, we want anger, we want blood, we want violence. And I think these lost shows that you had, like Batman 66, and you had the Wonder Woman TV show, and you had the Incredible Hulk, I just think something along those lines would work really well with those two characters, especially Cap, which he's that, not the big blue boy scout like Superman was supposed to be in his heyday, but along those lines, I just think it's something that's missing from entertainment generally, and I think it'd be really nice to return to it with those characters.
See, I'm really torn on this because I love that ending of Endgame. It's absolutely perfect, and I think, you know what? He earned his retirement. He went through so much shit. Let him just live his life. He's done. Like, he's been from one war to the next. He's never had any time to himself. Here you go, Cap. You got the girl. Go live the dream. So I love that ending to it, and I don't know if I'd like to see any more missions past that. But thinking about that, maybe you could go with a sort of route of, like the first Incredibles film, where you have these ex-superheroes that are now sort of like settling down to a quiet life, and the quiet life can be fun, but that only lasts for so long, and then you get that drive, then you get that burning desire to sort of like live the heyday again. So maybe you could go with a sort of, because they don't strike me as characters that would be sort of apathetic and just watch all these atrocities happen across the world and just sort of let it slide, because that's not Cap's character, that's not Peggy's character. And I actually know someone who hates Captain America at the end purely because it's inferred that he just gave up. He just let all these things happen and never got stuck in again and was sort of living the dream. So yeah, maybe that would sort of clarify those problems that one person has. But I think you'd have to handle it carefully, though, because I wouldn't want them to dismantle that beautiful ending that they set up with there. But yeah, they don't strike me as the kind of characters that would just sort of sit idly by and watch all this stuff happen.
No, exactly. Now, I think when you've got sort of these characters that we've seen over the decades inside the world, sort of 60, 70 years, that ending was earned, and there is that question mark of what happens next. And I think a lot of people probably see online, there's always not a rumor, but people are like, oh, I wonder if there's a story to tell of him putting the Infinity Stones back, or him and Peggy, what happened next. And it would just be like, I know that the dance is technically an epilogue, but if there was ever a time for something, it just needs to be something about those. Now, obviously, we've not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier yet. We don't know if we might find out more about sort of what Cap did between the last 5 minutes of Endgame. But I'm excited. I think it's just seeing the back on screen that, Iron Man's death was sad, and I cried a hell of a lot. And then the crying stopped, and then you carried on crying at the funeral. And the crying stopped, and then you realize that Peggy and Cap are dancing, and then you carry on crying. And the credits hit. It was one of those experiences. But yeah, one of my favorite couples in cinema. Granted, they didn't even become a couple till sort of 22 films later.
Absolutely. Right, it's my number one pick now, isn't it? There's no honorable mentions on these things. We're going straight to number one. And we're just jumping headlong straight into it. The biggest Marvel property that they sort of haven't got their head around yet, or at least we don't think they have, Kevin Feige might surprise us all, is the X-Men. I think the X-Men is so, especially in the world that they've set up at the moment with the MCU, is an extremely difficult property to jump back into for Marvel. And especially from the respect of how do you integrate it in this storyline that you've set up in the MCU. People are so familiar with the films. Like, those films have been around since, 2000, I think the first film came out. People know Wolverine, like Hugh Jackman is that character. And I think any attempt that you make to try and do another X-Men film or recast these characters, people are going to be immediately turned off by it. If you recast Wolverine, for example, people are going to be going, well, that's not my Wolverine. That's not Wolverine. And I think it's sort of dead in the water because those actors that they originally cast are the epitome of those characters. You've got Patrick Stewart, you've got Ian McKellen. They are those characters. They tried that with First Class, and I actually think they did a bang-up job with that. It's unfortunate, though, how that franchise sort of ended up as it did. But the reason that I picked this is because I'm going to take Boner out of the equation here, and let's just say we had Quicksilver in WandaVision, the Quicksilver from Days of Future Past. That's already... you sort of, dipping your toe in the water for the X-Men in the sort of TV realm or Disney Plus. And I think actually, out of probably more than any other superhero property, I think the X-Men would be right at home on TV. You have such a huge ensemble cast of X-Men. And I mean, it's constantly rotated out and more characters are thrown in. It is an entire school full of all these superheroes. I think TV would be brilliant for it because you remember the time when 20th Century Fox, had the rights to it and they wanted to do a series of origin films for everyone. It was going to kickstart with X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and then I think Magneto was lined up, and I think Jean Grey and Cyclops, and they had this huge master plan to do all these solo films. And obviously, after X-Men Wolverine, and everyone saw that film, that tanked straight away, and they never pursued that. But this would be your opportunity to do that. I could imagine an episode or maybe 2 episode arcs for each member of the X-Men. You get their origin story out the way. And then if you do choose to do the X-Men in a film, and we know that the Disney Plus series now with the likes of WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier are going to tie into the films in some respect. It's kind of expected now, if you're a Marvel fan, if you're following the MCU, to watch these Disney Plus shows to sort of, set you up for the actual feature films. If you got all the origin stories out of the way in an X-Men TV series of all your main cast of characters, well, then you wouldn't have to concern yourself with that when you actually get to the final film. If the TV show was done really well, you can set up the school, you can set up that environment. You've got the X-Jet, you've got all the different relationships that are sort of starting from that TV series. Everything's completely reinforced for when you get to that film. And, inherently, it being a TV series, you have more time with these characters. A lot of people with the X-Men films go, well, Wolverine was sort of given the limelight, and then a lot of the other characters sort of fell to the wayside. Fan favorites from the comic books sort of never got their justice. I'm looking at you, Cyclops, who's one of my favorite X-Men characters, and, well, they didn't really do anything with him, really, did they, in the film? So I think it would help you establish those relationships, that hierarchy at the school. You've got Charles Xavier, but then Cyclops should be the director of the X-Men. He should be your Captain America of, the X-Men, essentially. I think TV is the best way to do it. You have so much time to develop these people. You could make it really dramatic, emotional, and get all these different nationalities and ethnicities of all these different characters. You could go to all different parts of the world and just really flesh all these characters out and do them properly this time. And hopefully, if you're going to do the costumes, by God, get them in the colorful costumes. I'm going to bring up that picture once again. That's the X-Men I want to see in the MCU. None of that black leather jumpsuit stuff now. Let's move on. If we can do all the crazy costumes, why not for the X-Men? So my number 1 pick would be the X-Men.
I think with X-Men, the fact that you have the animated series in the 90s, which I've still not seen, but it's like that introduced a new audience to it, and that was a cartoon, and that's fine. You can do that. And the fact it's already proven in TV, do it again. It's the easiest way to separate people at home, people that are like, why isn't Hugh Jackman here? Why isn't, I don't know, Ellen Page here? Why isn't these people here? Why are so many people not here? And you bring it to TV, it's like, no, this is different. This is something completely new. And I think that's something that comes with this, is that it's the easiest way. Because if you do a film, you end up saying, this is another new X-Men. Like what? Like First Class new X-Men, or like original X-Men, or like New Mutants X-Men, or like Deadpool X-Men. And it's kind of, how many new X-Men have we had and do we need? And this is probably the most like Kevin Feige has probably ever been. We know this project's in development. We don't know if it's a film or TV, but we know full well he is scratching his head, and this is the issue. It's how does he do it? It's not when, it's how. And I think that's the big thing for him, that he knows he's got to take so many variations into account. But I personally think TV is the way to go. With WandaVision, not saying, obviously, we don't know, it's not introduced to X-Men yet, but the fact that WandaVision was look at the final episode with the CG and everything, and it's like, again, it's like Mandalorian. Shoot it on those stages. Do something different. You've got the money. TV, you can make films look quality on TV budget now. And I think X-Men could really capitalize from that, stand out as its own thing, to then slowly bring it into the MCU to take off. Could be however many episodes or seasons you need. It's the smartest way to bring them in, I think.
I think they're just going to...
Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say they're going to totally miss a trick if they didn't have the original 90s cartoon theme as their show theme, no matter what, and recreate that opening of the TV show with as that animated cartoon, because it's just so good.
Oh, it was one of my favorite shows. Yeah, growing up in the 90s, it was, and that theme is so good. I was just having a look because I swear there was a recent sort of like X-Men TV series that was done. I think it's called The Gifted. I found
and Legion as well, wasn't it?
Legion's what I'd heard of. Yeah.
So I never watched those. I don't know if they got cancelled. I don't know if they're still ongoing. I've heard no one talk about them, so I don't know if they're good or bad. I judging by the fact that no one's talking about it, I'm assuming it wasn't all that great. So hopefully a TV series could be done that's more true to the comics. Maybe even do your original lineup, with Beast, Archangel, Jean Grey, Cyclops. Just keep it to like a small cast and then bring more people in as the series go on. But yeah, they need to bring them home. Like they've got them home now. Let's get them in there.
They just need to go a bit. You're right. It's such an important property that they've regained, that you can see how much work they're gonna put into this. They're never gonna let X-Men just out as like we've got them now, let's get a film out next year so we can start doing it. They're gonna make this such a big property. But you're right, it's again prime for this television slot, or especially on Disney Plus, where you've got such big money behind it, big production behind it. And I just think it would work amazingly. And their characters, everyone is desperate to see again.
Exactly. So for my last pick, we're all familiar with the portal scene from Endgame, right? When Cap stands up, he faces down Thanos, and you get that triumphant note. The Alan Silvestri store kicks in, and it feels like a victory because we know now what's coming on your left. We know that the portal song's happening. In my triumphant moment of hearing that triumphant note, the only thing I expect to see out of a portal is a man called Tobey Maguire.
I'm getting emotional hearing about this right now.
I'm playing the portal song in my head, but there wasn't a portal. There wasn't 100 Avengers. Cap goes out the portal and in swings Tobey Maguire to take on Thanos himself. It needs to be Spider-Man 4 as a series, doesn't it? I don't care anymore. If we don't get him back in December, let's take us fanboys aside. I think even people that don't like Tobey much would be disappointed at this moment in time, because we know you're getting Doc Ock. We know we're getting Electro. We know they're doing multiverse stuff. And if you do not bring it, and I'll even say I don't like the Andrew Garfield films. I don't mind some of his Robert. Even I would be gutted if Garfield doesn't appear at this point in time. And what we need to know is the story, what went on between 2007 to 2020. You know, are we going to get like an Old Man Logan style Spider-Man series? I'm not. We'll find that in December, brackets, fingers crossed. But we know there's a Spider-Man 4 script out there. We know that there are storyboards out there. We know that this was almost done thing, and Avi Arad was plotting to destroy Sam Raimi. But guess what? Avi Arad's got nothing to do with the MCU. Of course, he still, for some reason, has some Spider-Man, so I've just embarrassed myself. But I'm saying Kevin Feige, get Spider-Man 4 made, make another deal with the devil. Don't care what that deal is, but bring it on Disney Plus. Sony don't have a streaming service yet. This is why this qualifies. I had to research that. There is no Sony streaming service. God knows they're listening. They'll probably announce one tomorrow, like probably Sony Plus knowing that. We need the untold stories of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. We deserve it. I don't even want to sound entitled, but there would be no bigger occasion in history. Forget your Snyder Cut nonsense. This is the real campaign. Restore the Raimi-verse. The man is in with Marvel. He is directing Doctor Strange 2. Danny Elfman is brackets somehow returned to the MCU and is a part of that process. It needs to happen. It has to happen. I don't even need to justify story decisions or anything. When the scene hits in December, if it hits in December, there is going to be an absolute emotional wreck. And it's going to be 100 times the power of portals. That's why I keep going about this triumphant note, because all we need is a triumphant Spider-Man score to bring in his return. And I will be ready, but I will not be ready for when they do Spider-Man 4 Justified on the small screen.
Oh, Doctor Strange 2, we've got Raimi, we've got Elfman. I mean, we're 2/3 of the way there, right? We can do it. We're just so close. We're so close to perfection. You know how I feel about this. Like, Christ alive, like in our personal lives, we always talk about Spider-Man 4 and what could have been. It was the fact how it was happening, and then overnight it wasn't, and it was just cruelly ripped away from us. And we could have had a Spider-Man saga by now. And it's just that really depresses me when you said, I want to know what happens between 2007 and 2021. I'm like, my God, has it really been that long? Like, Jesus. I would kill to see this. Now, I don't know if it would be a Disney Plus series. I think it's justified and would need to be a film. But if we get any kind of Raimiverse or anything from that trilogy of films, a continuation, a scene, a 10-minute short, anything, just I'm clamoring for anything from this. I'll be a happy man. So yeah, you would like teeing that up, and I was getting like teary-eyed, just like thinking about the possibilities of what could have happened. But that theme's got to kick in. That Elfman theme. If that's, I know like Giacchino's great, but he's got to stay true to that theme. He's got to bring those individual themes. The one that James Horner won as well, or I guess Hans Zimmer. I guess they did away with that theme in the sequel, but yeah, it's just that will get me probably more emotional than Portals will be see his return.
I mean, you obviously mean Tom Holland, the best Spider-Man, right? I'm never getting asked back.
Where's the kick button? Where's the kick button?
You know what? As much as I'm not the biggest fan of the Maguire take on. Sorry, love you guys. His take, and I do love Tom Holland's take on the Spider-Man. I think you're right. The fact that the fourth film was so far into production, that they had so much done. Like, I think they've even had costume tests of Vulture. They've got so far down the line this is ready to be done, and then they were announced, no, we're going a different way now completely. It's there to be pulled against. If they could get Maguire to return for it, if in some way they got him to put the costume back on and be Spider-Man again, I think it would be it would be incredible. You're going to get a generation of people who, like yourselves, who that's Spider-Man, that's who you want to see, and I absolutely get that. So I think it would make wonderful television to see Spider-Man back, and I think you're right with the whole movie that was there, and the relationship with the directors and the music, and hopefully we're going to see all three Spider-Men in December when the movie comes out. It's absolutely rife and time for it to happen.
It'll be a nice little Christmas gift, won't it? If we get what do you want for Christmas? Just Tobey Maguire. That's all I want.
It's riding sea biscuits while spring webs.
It's one of those with him where, you know, I'm not going to say this as a Star Wars fan, that I don't get me wrong, they're true at home. That was great. But I know I'm not the generation that grew up with the original films. Yes, I saw them and I watched them across my childhood, but my Star Wars generation, my introduction has always been the prequels, and I didn't have the gap of time. You know, not the fact that I wasn't born when the originals came out, but I can't have the Chewie we're home moment that a lot of people did. And I don't take that away from anyone, because I still loved it. I still hate it. But I think if you get Maguire doing that, that was that for me. That was me at that age. I was, 5 years old when that first Spider-Man film came out. I was 11 years old when the third one came out. Those gaps in between where there was, oh my God, there's a new Spider-Man film. And then it cruelly being taken away. As you said, so close to everything. And in fact, Sony had a script written. They had somebody writing scripts for Amazing Spider-Man whilst Raimi was in pre-production. Is disgusting. And that is Avi Arad all over. It's the fact that when we do get the return, if we get that return, it's because of what we've not had for so long. I think that's why that's going to be my Han Solo moment for me. I don't want it, even me, I'm being honest, I don't want it to be a pizza time gag. I just genuinely just want to see Maguire just in a superhero film. We haven't seen him since The Great Gatsby, and I think it needs to happen. And I know I'm turning this into a December thing, but TV, and this is my predicament, me and Chris are supposed to, it won't happen, but if for whatever reason in December there is this incredible, oh my God, it was incredible seeing him back, we loved him. Sony own the rights, not Marvel, right? We know how bad Sony are as a company with blockbusters at organizing the Spider-Man stuff. If the whole world said, oh my God, it is amazing seeing him back, bet all your money on them getting him greenlit for a film or a series. Because Sony will seek any opportunity to get anyone on that big screen. And they will then probably say, hey, Sam Raimi, guess what? We're making you do Venom again. So I don't know. I just think dependent on a reaction in December, I don't think this would ever happen, but there is a 1% chance that if everything aligns, I bet you more than anything, Sony would be the ones to try and milk it.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Well, yeah, we know the depths that Sony will sink with the Spider-Verse, where a legit idea that was thrown around was...
It's the Spunk, isn't it? The Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters.
It's beautiful.
Spunk.
Beautiful. I don't know who came up with that, but it's beautiful. But how close they were to a Secret Agent Aunt May film. That was a legit idea. So... I mean, the world's their oyster, God forbid. But I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to have to be Sony. So, yeah, we'll have to be very vocal with our praise for Tobey Maguire in December to get the justice for Spider-Man 4 that we've long desired.
And I guess that just takes me to my choice. Now, I have not put these in order. This is not in a numerical of how I wanted them. To be honest, once I was asked for my picks, I struggled to pick like 5 that I would really want to see. And I really had to kind of look through like Marvel encyclopedia on just on my phone, like on Wikipedia, just to see different characters that I thought could be then interesting to be portrayed now on television. And this brought me to the character of Kitty Pryde. Now, as an X-Men, and obviously played now by Elliot Page, I think it would have to be the continuation. She's one of the only characters who kind of survived from being brought in from X-Men 2 or X-Men 3. X3. Yeah, with the
Kitty Pryde was in a cameo in 2, but it wasn't.
Just wasn't her. Yeah, dropped through the bed. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so she survived from that, and she was in Days of Future Past. She played a massive role in that. So I think it's kind of it can be. It's not. It's kind of strange to say. I haven't kind of thought of the concept of what the show might be, but I think with the Page becoming Elliot Page, I would be very much interesting to see if they could align that character. And I think for them to have diversity across a lot of what they have on Marvel, and they're certainly trying to do it. Obviously, they're bringing in things like Miss Marvel. They're going to have this range of, like, obviously, a lot of female characters, a lot of characters from different ethnic backgrounds. Did a lot with Black Panther when they brought that out. So I think it'd be very interesting to use Elliot Page as a starting block, as where they could take the character, how they would then change the story around that character. But I just think it'd be really interesting, and I almost want to say experimental, but I don't mean it in a really negative way. But I think for Disney Plus to kind of put that out and say, this is a character you've known, and this is how we're changing it, and this is going forward with this actor. And I think it's just a really, really nice position to put it in.
So would this be, I know you said you haven't like really thought about the concept, but would this be an X-Men series, or would this be like a solely Kitty
I
Pryde
would put this as a separate step away from the X-Men, so not with the X-Men, but a girl with with the same powers. And I just think that would be a really interesting take on the character. I just think it's more about his portrayal of that character now and the way he is in his life, and what would then be brought to that character.
I think, like Kitty Pryde, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read all the X-Men comic books. I know that Days of Future Past, the comic book, Kitty Pryde is the one who's sent back and not Wolverine. Like, basically, her character is the main character. So, but I could understand why for the films they went with Wolverine, because he was kind of like the main bankable star, wasn't he, of that? But I really liked what they did with Kitty Pryde in the films. She didn't have loads to do in the films. X3, I think she was just part of a love triangle, and thankfully they kind of gave her more to do in Days of Future Past. I don't know how well she'd work on her own, because the X-Men being the X-Men, I think it works more as an ensemble, but I would like to see more given to a character. My one concern would be, especially because I guess it would be sort of like the first time that Eddie Studio would be doing something like that, or sort of, I think it's a very delicate issue, and I think it would be very easy for them to get very woke and very preachy and very dumbed down about it. And I don't think that that's the way that they should go about it. I think if they handled it with maturity, I think they could do some really special things with that, and touch on some very touchy and very topical topics. That's why they're called topics. I don't know why I threw that word at the beginning of it. I think, but you see some things, and I know this is totally different, but the Batwoman TV show, which is awful and is abysmally written and is so much for sort of like this woke agenda in how it's written, and it comes across as that's down to the writing. But if they had mature writers behind it, and like Elliot Page starring in it again and continuing that character but in a completely different way, that could be very interesting. I could see that almost being like a passion project for him at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with it too, is that I don't watch Umbrella Academy, but I know that Netflix has gone over the credits of the previous 2 seasons. They've switched Ellen to Elliot, and I think that he's going to get a transformation. I don't watch the series. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I know that Netflix are very open to, you're an important actor to our series, you're an important character to our series. How do we want to approach this? I think from a Marvel perspective, the Kitty Pryde, because we don't know how they're going to do X-Men, and that's the other thing. There is potential, because off what you say, Chris, as well, and what we saw in Days of Future Past, she is the character that's able to send Logan back to the old timeline. And there could be something there with the powers, but it'd be quite interesting because one of the things we know with Marvel, and I actually saw something on the news with Kevin Feige, which actually pissed me off a bit, where he spoke about how Marvel's on the forefront of, I don't want to say the term wrong. He didn't say bringing in minorities in film, but he mentioned the openness. I'm like, well, you've only just got your first female film coming out, and you've had one film with the black lead. That's not you at the forefront of anything, as far as I'm concerned. Black Widow is a retaliation to Wonder Woman. And I love Marvel, don't get me wrong, but Marvel can't get on that bandwagon. I think as well, they've had one open gay character in the entire series, and that was one of the Russo brothers in a cameo in Endgame. You know, there's no forefront of anything in that sense. It's not even ticking boxes. It's not even agenda. It's very much, you know, they've took a back seat, and so I think they've really had to address it. And don't get me wrong, Black Panther I absolutely bloody adore. And that shows exactly what you can do when you give the funding to the right people, the people that don't get given chances at films in that mindset, with that budget, with that history, just letting them get on with it. But I'd be intrigued to see what they would do. Because I think Elliot Page is an interesting one. Obviously, so much is obviously changing, and I think he's going through a divorce as well at the moment. I'd be intrigued to see what comes next and what directors want to work with him. And I think it'll be interesting to see this. But with that history of Marvel, with the history of, you know, how do we get the X-Men into this world? Depends if this would want to be them doing a deep dive into the old X-Men timeline or a new one. But if there's any character that would be involved in that kind of world merging, you know, multiversing, powers-wise, Kitty Pryde is probably the one for it. And as a side point, Kitty Pryde also becomes briefly a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics. So that's something that blew my mind when I was reading that yesterday. And well, I'm not going to get into Chris Pratt's politics. That definitely won't be happening. Let's quickly move on. Sorry, guys. I just realised.
Yeah, that's all of our lists then, isn't it? I think we've come to a swift end. So yeah, now we want to hear you. So our list was the 15 Marvel shows we need on Disney Plus. We left so many characters out. There are hundreds, probably thousands of Marvel characters that could get a Disney Plus series. And now we want to hear from you. So let's hear some of your lists. Maybe you agree with some of our picks, disagree, let us know, and also suggest some more characters, because this was a really fun list to put together, actually. This has been a really good discussion tonight. And as I mentioned earlier, so many ideas, Disney. Like, get us on your creative team. Like, let's get it going. But yeah, that will do it for us for today for our Marvel discussion. But Marvel isn't going anywhere. We are sort of like riding the Marvel high at the moment. We will be back next Friday for, again, the regular scheduled programming of discussing Disney Plus TV shows. We will, of course, be talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That'll be the spoiler discussions. It'll be 8 p.m. every single Friday. So that'll be kicking off Friday, the 19th of March. There's the very nice thumbnail again for episode 1. Very much looking forward to that one. And of course, if you aren't done with Marvel and you want to hear more about Marvel, I'm going to hand over to George now to discuss the massive retrospective that he's going through at the moment. I don't even know what episode we're up to. We've recorded so many of these in advance. Time is a relative concept at this time, but yeah, go ahead, George.
Definitely. The Infinity Saga Retrospective every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Tomorrow night, if you're watching this live, tomorrow night is the ending of Phase 1. This is the Avengers. Dave is joining me on that one. Joined me for that one. So that's going to be up tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We've got a lot in development. A lot of them are pre-recorded, but we're premiering them. I'll be around to answer any comments along with the streams. I'm very grateful for all the comments that have come back to. We've had some new people on the channel, which has been amazing to talk to, bringing in new opinions, people we've not been able to speak to. And it's really nice to sort of not change things up. I like talking with you, Chris, don't worry. But it means we can watch, except for me, people get to pick and choose what Marvel films they want to talk about. There's no forced, you must watch X, Y, and Z. Thanks, Dave, for watching Thor: The Dark World as well.
You are.
But no, if you like Marvel, this is the series to join us on. It's very different. If you like this purple space aesthetic, hey, it's in those videos too. It's on those lovely thumbnails. So every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 8 more weeks, 17 more videos after tomorrow's video goes up. So we are deep into production on them. I'm happy to say that we have recorded Guardians of the Galaxy and that Age of Ultron is being recorded tomorrow night. I'm willing to say that. I'm not going to reveal who those guests are yet for that one. So a lot of things in production, and it's amazing pretending that you're 2 weeks in the future, not knowing what's happening, what's airing, or anything like that, or even discussing people like oh god, Joss Whedon, because we were terrified that 2 weeks after we recorded that video, what more allegations could come up. Luckily, there were no other allegations, so we spoke very delicately on that subject. I don't know why I keep waffling. I keep bringing these really bad politic vibes. That's not my intention at all. But I'm absolutely mad with it tonight. Let's just stick to Marvel. But if you are fed up of Marvel and you reach an hour and a half into another Marvel video, then we do have other videos. We've got the Cinema Savvy Awards that are every Thursday. Last night we went live for Best Soundtrack and Best Original Song. That was really good fun. People discovered that I only know 2 Prince songs, which has caused a bit of internal debate. Even my friends at home have messaged me about that, which is insane. And I've still not listened to the song, so I'm sorry in advance.
Of course you haven't.
But no, my music taste is abysmal. I keep listening to the same songs when I'm driving to places. I should really change it, but I just get too in the zone. But aside from that, we've also got the Retro Review series. So we're in the 90s now. Point Break reviews coming this Tuesday, the 16th of March. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a bit different. It's a film I've only seen once. It's sort of reopening my eyes to it all. And of course, if you missed last week, we did Face Off, which was insane. So do check that out. We've got a lot of videos coming your way. And the best way to find out about those videos is, of course, getting us on our social medias, which is Facebook Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. TeePublic link is in the description below. And Dave, if you want to let us know where we can find you as well.
You can find me over at YouTube at The Life of Brien. If you want to come over and watch me build some partwork models, currently building Ecto 1 and a T800. Build things like the R2, you can just see the legs of behind me, and also the Falcon. So yeah, come on over to The Life of Brien on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you for jumping on with us tonight for this very last minute video that we did. This was good fun tonight. It's always fun talking about Marvel. So that'll do it from us. And until the next video, we'll catch you guys next time.